So I'd never seen Shortcuts, and I knew 0.1% about it.
I love
and
this.
at the end, I went, dude, there's a lot of death in Shortcuts,
Yeah,
I was like, I didn't know there'd be one death. And there's like, I don't even think I've lost track. Like there's a ton of death, direct and indirect.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this movie's like corpse riddled, you know?
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
It's one fucking hour time. I am Evan Husney, and this is, of course, the show where we talk about one goddamn movie and we just have one fucking hour to do it. To my left, we got, as we've been saying these past few weeks, Big T, Tom Fitzgerald. What's going on?
Whoopum Gangnam Style.
Oh, my God.
Trying to stay topical,
Yeah, there you go. Right. Very of the now. And to my right, we got Mr. Marcus Herring. Marcus, what's going on?
What's up, everybody? I'm just noticing how sweaty I look. It must be summer.
Yep. It's that summer swelt, but it's also one fucking summer, guys. This is the summer series where we are covering one film for each year of the 90s. And tonight is 1993. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's been a blast so far.
Yeah.
Getting through 93 here. 93, Kurt's still alive. That's
right.
What's that heart-shaped box record? What the hell was that called?
In Utero.
Yeah, in Utero.
Right.
And what else is going on?
Oh, dude. 36
wrestling
Chambers. 36 Chambers coming out.
That's right. I'm an idiot.
Don't forget about that.
Wu-Tang's debut, the METHOD Man, 12 inches, what I heard, early 93. I was like,
what a track.
What is this? And actually, the same radio station played Loser by Beck, the same hour block. So that's 93 for me. 93 was starting off with a bizang.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So we're talking about 93. We started with 1990 just a few weeks ago when we did Slacker for Marcus's birthday. And like a real mensch, Marcus sent us something in the mail. And I feel like it's my birthday now. So Marcus, thank you. You mentioned this, I believe, on the show. So these are what now?
Oh, we both found them?
Yeah, thank you so much for sending us these.
This
these are
is
so cool.
very cool.
So yeah, I got myself one too, obviously. But so
Nice.
these are promotional books of the film Slacker from 1990, so that they made to
So
promote
cool.
the film. So it's really in depth, like scripts,
amazing.
character names, all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, like
Really
it breaks
cool.
down each character, and you can like
Really
really
cool.
drill down on like Kendall Smith.
Yeah, super cool.
right.
Super cool.
Really get
It's-
into Kendall Smith.
Every movie should have a book that goes this in depth.
Totally.
It's
Really
just so
cool.
weird with Slacker. Like,
Really cool. This is definitely going on the shelf. Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah,
Very
that's dope.
cool.
It's
Enjoy.
going to fit
Appreciate
nicely
it.
with my stuff.
Appreciate it. So
And hey,
tonight-
that's an ensemble film.
It
sort
is.
of.
It is. It goes with
Sort
tonight's
of.
episode, of course. Tonight is episode 108, where we, like I said, we're getting into 1993, and we are doing Robert Altman's Shortcuts. So strap in for that. First time viewing for this guy over here. This guy over here, Tom. So we'll get into that.
Yeah, I've never seen it. That was going commando style. And I realized that I'd never done that because I started Shortcuts and I was like, what if I hate this? And it's like, what have I gotten myself into? Because I don't know anything about it. I've never seen a frame of it.
That's
So
wild to me.
It's just one of those weird things that happen,
Yeah.
But we'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk.
I did watch. Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk shortly, or just real quick before we get into the episode tonight. Just a quick shout out to the One Fucking Hour Patreon. Patreon.com/onefuckinghour is where you can sign up for just $5 a month, get instant access to all of our bonus vids, audio commentary tracks, especially our new bonus episode, which dropped last week, which is pretty hilarious. We did the three of us and Ramey got together to play the Blockbuster board game.
I had a blast.
Yeah.
My takeaway is Santa, I really want to work for you in the North Pole.
Oh my god.
It was that kind of
it was-
special bonus episode.
It was us basically trying to play guessing games with the films of the zeitgeist, over the last
fun.
few decades.
We might do it again.
Yeah, we should do it again. It was pretty funny. It was a team game, so you'll see who wins, who loses, and the stakes are very high. So if you want to watch us play the Blockbuster board game in celebration of our 90s marathon here, it's up on the Patreon. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, you can scroll underneath the video, click the join button, and become a moment of the channel. Same price, same perks, same bullshit. So we appreciate all the support, everybody who signed up this far. Thank you very much for being a moment.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think I'm ready. Is there anything else you want to get in before we hit the clock?
We'll get into like the next consecutive episodes coming up.
Oh yes, we will announce 94, the next episode at the end of the show. Stay tuned for that. Very exciting pick. Good follow up to this movie.
Oh, Nelly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, here we go now with.
Okay.
Was it Sideways? I'm kidding.
Sideways. Shortcuts.
Kidding.
Marcus, you good? You ready to go?
Let's roll. Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Here comes the clock, and boom. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly read a synopsis. Again, as always, this comes from the... I'm going to be looking over...
Guide.
This is not the Malton. This is the Criterion awesome edition of this movie. I'm going to be looking over here a lot tonight because I have to use this monitor to read my notes. But, okay. Shortcuts. The work of two great American artists merges in Shortcuts, a kaleidoscopic adaptation of the stories of renowned author Raymond Carver by maverick director Robert Altman. Epic in scale, yet meticulously observed, the film interweaves the stories of 22 characters as they struggle to find solace and meaning in contemporary Los Angeles. The extraordinary ensemble cast includes Tim Robbins, Julianne Moore, Robert Downey Jr., Jack Lemmon, and Jennifer Jason Leigh, of course, many others, all giving fearless performances in what is one of Altman's most compassionate creations. And I'll just add on to that the nightclub singer in this movie. There's a quote from her in the film where she says,
"I hate LA. All they do is snort coke and talk."
Which I think is a good line from the flick. But anyway.
I bet that probably got some laughs.
It did, yes, it did.
In L.A.
Yeah, for sure. So I have to ask, I mean, maybe before we get into, Baby Got Backstory and our favorite, characters and set pieces, this is a 3-hour plus movie, by the way. This is an giant epic ensemble film. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot to get to. But I'm curious, Tom, so you saw it for the first time. Just, without going too far in depth.
No, of course.
Top line thoughts?
This is an experience unique to the show for me. Yeah. 1 fucking hour. And strangely, it's just one of those things. I didn't know anything about it. This is what I knew about Shortcuts. It's in L.A. and Huey Lewis is in it. Because when I heard that, I found that funny. It was just amusing to me. Like, Jesus, everybody's in this movie, even
10
Huey
seconds.
Lewis.
Yeah.
Like the power of love guy. So that was it. And so I just put it on, and it's funny because it starts and I'm like, uh-oh, maybe I'm going to hate this. And it's going to be a grueling 3 hours. I'm going to be like, coming back, guys, like, I got to fucking dunk this movie, but that didn't happen. And, it's I think maybe it's part of the nature of a big unwieldy thing like this.
Yeah.
Is that there's some weaker stuff, there's some stronger stuff, but it all kind of comes out in the wash. And when it's good, it's great Altman. And I'm a huge Altman person.
Yeah, likewise.
I didn't love The Player, and that might be why I didn't like Shortcuts, or I didn't want to see Shortcuts. But like this resonated with me more than The Player. It was a little too cutie pie, The Player,
right?
Comparatively, but this is some good, like, old sick ass Nashville like. It is, because he did a monster ensemble piece. I saw the movie when I was like 8 years old in the theater. So Nashville is very, very ingrained in me, and it was a huge impression. I'd love to do it at some point, by the way.
We will, for sure.
Takeaways. Yeah. But he's up there at that level of when he does the occasional ensemble film. It's on par.
Yeah. Really quickly before I throw it to you, right before I throw it to you, Marcus, one thing, I think by nature of having a film that's of so many different interweaving stories and so many different ensemble characters, it's natural to compare like which ones are going to work and which ones not. Yeah. But Marcus, you must have it. You said you had a history with this movie, right? Before we recorded.
Yeah, this is one of those that my parents had on VHS.
Oh.
They bought it or something, and so I watched it a lot as a kid, and
Wow.
I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was like I didn't know it was Altman. I probably didn't know it was Altman until like 20 years later or something.
Oh,
I just
shit.
thought,
Wow.
like somebody made it.
Yeah.
It has a bunch of people in it. But no, I watched it a lot, so it really ingrained in my head. And some of the things that I realized rewatching it, that some of the things that I think are tropes, are just me mistaking it for this movie. If you have a film that you watched a lot as a kid, then you think like, oh, they're doing that phone sex worker trope or whatever. But it's really just because I watched this movie so many times.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, and I loved this kind of movie. I mean, obviously we started this whole thing with Slacker, this style of ensemble film. And rewatching it this time, I was thinking about how much I loved this kind of film in the 90s and how much it was popping off in that era. You got Slacker, 1990, and then remember that movie Night on Earth?
Of course.
From 1991.
It's Jarmusch, right?
Yeah, right,
Midnight.
Jarmusch. Yeah, with Winona Ryder as the as a taxi driver, and then Shortcuts is 93. Then you've got that movie $20. I don't know if you remember that. It's like they follow a $20 bill around.
I remember that.
And
How about
Pulp
200
Fiction.
cigarettes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Pulp
the-
Fiction 94.
Sure.
And then Magnolia. It just keeps going. It was really popping off in the 90s. I wonder why. Was it everyone doing Altman or are they doing
I
Slacker?
think there's
Why
definitely an
was it,
Altman influence
definitely.
is at least in mind, because he kind of owned that. Like I said, because just getting back to Nashville for a second, like that that left a big impression on cineasts and younger filmmakers, and it was pretty unprecedented to do that. It was an odd shaped film to have a film like that, and I think he succeeded wildly. And he did
Have
a
you
few
ever seen
others.
A Wedding too?
I was going to say, never
Yeah.
saw that. And I think Health is like that too. They're both from like 78, 79. And so he did a few other ensemble ones. But I'm just saying Nashville was pretty seismic. And
Yeah. It's pretty singular.
So for him to return to form must have been very exciting to, again, cineasts, Altman fans specifically. And I think that it was, what I'm trying to say is, I'm rambling here, it's like Nashville and him in general are a tenet of the new cinema, which is what a lot of young filmmakers in the 90s, they worship that from Tarantino on down.
Totally. So let's kind of take a snapshot of where Altman is at, before this movie. So, the 80s was a tough decade for a lot of, for Altman and a lot of his contemporaries, these sort of filmmakers of the 70s, like people like Arthur Penn and Hal Ashby and Sam Peckinpah and John Cassavetes. A lot of these guys had a rough time in the 80s adjusting to the way things were changing. And, especially with Altman after Popeye, it seemed like he almost was written off completely after that movie. Which we should do.
Got to do
at
that
some
one
point.
sometime.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Have fun. I might tap out on that one.
We'll do a commentary track.
That movie makes me feel funny.
Oh, you're just yella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So, but he was like, after that, he was kind of like almost exiled, and he did a lot of like, cable TV things, off Broadway things, low budget sort of, quote unquote drama films. But
that Nixon film, Secret Honor,
smaller kind of, chamber pieces like that, if you will. But anyway, he came back hard with The Player. The Player was a hit, and a lot of the, the sort of it crowd in Hollywood, really responded to that movie, and that was sort of a movie everybody was talking about. It's sort of like an.
It made him bankable though, again too. So
it made him bankable. It was a hit. It was a movie that people dug.
Yeah.
And so, then he he goes to follow up the success of The Player, and he returns, as you were saying, to the style and strategy of those earlier 70s films with, something like Nashville, interweaving storylines, huge casts, open-ended narratives, and going back to that, which is very ambitious and risky as well too.
Sure.
So Shortcuts is based on 9 separate stories and a poem by Raymond Carver. Who's a famous American author. And it's interesting because the only piece of the movie of Shortcuts, as we'll get into, that was wholly invented for the movie is the set piece with the lounge singer Tom's favorite character, I'm sure.
Best part.
Yeah.
All right.
And her daughter that was manufactured for the film.
Okay.
Everything else,
Lori
sort of-
Singer.
Yeah, right. Is sort of based on these short films, and only two of the short story Raymond Carver stories are pretty close to what's actually in the film. One is A Small Good Thing, which is one of my favorite storylines in the whole film, which is about a baker, the one played by Lyle Lovett, who harasses a couple who haven't picked up their son's birthday cake, and because he's unaware that the boy lies comatose after a car accident.
That gets almost Todd Solondz-y kind of.
It does. It does. Great set piece, amazing. And the other one that's dead spot on to the source material is So Much Water, So Close to Home is the name of the short story, which is about three fishermen who won't let the discovery of a nude female corpse disrupt their vacation.
I thought that might be the case, and I was hoping because that sounds like a really sharp, little sick short story, mid-century short story.
Totally.
Kind of eternal, not like even like 90s related, just kind of like a grim little anecdote. Very cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of his thought. Go ahead, Marcus. Yeah, sorry.
Just a minute on the Carver thing. I think it's I guess so. He's like sort of a Pacific Northwest author who wrote like about middle class, working class people in like trailer parks and stuff. So like, and he was dead by the time this movie was put together.
Yep.
He died when he was 50.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were questioning at first that like Altman moved it to LA instead of like the Pacific Northwest or whatever, but there was some interesting interviews with his wife, the widow of Carver, who kind of okayed the whole project, and she was saying like, I think it's great because it's these two genius artists came together and produced something wholly new, and you've got a little bit of Altman and a little bit of Carver mixed together, and I think that's I never realized that. I never questioned where this movie came from, and it makes sense. It's a bunch of short stories stuck together. Yeah. But just beyond the two people, like two artists kind of coming together, there's also this like tension with just the two mediums coming together. I think like with the short story, you've got an insight into the narrator and into like into the mind of the inner mind of the narrator or the characters. And when it's Altman style of film, you don't really have as much insight. So you're just kind of watching characters unfold, and you're kind of guessing what they're up to, or like you get little hints of their dialogue or whatever if they have like a moment of clarity. But I think it's really interesting to see like the short story format translated to film and just do away with that like open narrator. I think it's a much more riskier prospect and
totally
and very rewarding. So.
The film, the camera, we are at always a distance from the action and the characters. There's no interior anything. There's certainly no voiceover. Like it's unimaginable there'd be a voiceover. It would be quite alien to the way the film works.
Right. Totally.
I was reading bits and pieces of the cop story and the Carver thing, and you get to see into his mind, and it's so weird because you don't get a glimpse into what's going on.
Not at all. No. And it's interesting. Ebert was a big champion of shortcuts. He loved this movie, and
cool.
He describes a Carver story just for people who aren't familiar. He urges people to read them if you never have, and he says that there is typically a moment when an ordinary statement becomes crucial or poetic or sad in the stories. People get blinding glimpses into the real nature of their lives. The routine is peeled aside, and they can see they've been stuck in a rut for years going through the motions. And so it's kind of these lost, adrift characters, leading these lives. And so it's very interesting that, just conceptually, that you're going to take 9 different stories and you're going to try to, instead of adapting it into one film, you're going to take 9 stories. Well, you are making it into one film, but not one story for one film. You're going to make it a collage of all these different separate works and sort of put them together. Is very unique concept.
And how they sort of complement each other.
Yep.
How one disparate story affects the story, that you're following, in parallel. And how there's they're indirectly commenting on each other,
Right.
Totally.
It's very cool.
And I like how some of them intersect and some of them don't too. There are just a few moments where they cross over. You see the clown here, or like the photo incident or whatever, but like they don't all intersect. And it's not just some, of course the ending, but there's not some big aha moment where like they're all connected somehow, which is a little too cutesy, like modern day kind of approach to things.
Yeah, and of course, like the stories themselves have no connections. That's how, that's what Robert Altman and his co-writer did, is they basically made, loose narrative connections, but it's also more that they spotted the thematic connections between all the stories. The idea of urban isolation, the misunderstandings between people, the communication breakdowns, the petty cruelties of people, the silences, those types of things. So,
Sure.
and then
infidelity.
the infidelity, and they took all that and sort of made a patchwork of all of it, which I think is just so unique. And
no, totally. One
cool.
thing that I liked, I'm here in LA, and LA is a funny town because, unlike if you lived in, say, Manhattan or the way Brooklyn is very often now, it's still very working class, mostly in the city. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's bus stops and motherfuckers waiting at the bus stop, all over the place here. But then Tom Hanks is up in the hill. It's very odd and extreme. And one thing I was appreciating about this film was that he got to play with the class, not class like warfare or anything, but like the class, the different classes, quite simply. You know what I mean? Like Lily Tomlin is way down, and then there's the newscaster and his family are way up there, and then on and on and on. And you can tell geographically by where they are, like where their neighborhood is and what their place looks like. And I thought that was really interesting. And this is a little teaser. I think we're going to do some comparisons here, but I was remembering it's just a teaser. Let's not forget this. Like, here's a movie that copycatting this one, and this film didn't deal with class at all, and that was one of the things that got me going. I was like, how can you like just ignore class? And that's Magnolia. Everyone more or less is in the same strata. Like, or it's not even addressed. Like no one's working. What I'm trying to say is no one's working class. But back to this film. No, totally. In this film, there's a lot. It's very working class. Like we're saying, like Lyle Lovett, he's a baker.
Love it.
He's a schmo, but he has to intersect with the guy who's on Channel 7 News. And I was really responding to that. And again, it's very much the nature of Los Angeles.
Exactly. And I do think that's a huge part of the whole thing, is this idea of, and we love movies like this because a lot of films we talk about on this channel have the same theme, which is, beneath the surface, beneath the veneer of glamour of a place like LA, is and all the artifice is, this heart of darkness and the emptiness and, all of that. And I think this film explores that. And it's kind of an interesting companion piece with the player, only in that the player sort of takes the sort of, upper class, Hollywood sort of the way how Hollywood was getting so bullshit. And it's funny that Hollywood embraced the movie because it's completely, satirizing.
It's so solipsistic. Like, wow, you really nailed us. We love it.
Exactly.
We can laugh at ourselves.
Yeah, totally. But this is kind of like, looking at a different class, I think, of LA. Right. It's funny that there's a quote from Altman talking about, his own work, and he says, quote, "Admire me not for how I succeed, not for how good the films are, but for the fact that I keep going back and jumping off the cliff." And I like that.
Yeah, I do like that. And you really feel it in a film like this, kind of all of his films in a way. And that is something that you do sort of natively respond to, that he's like rolling the dice, and taking a lot of chances. And, it's fun. It's just, it's a fun exercise because, I mean, if he was a terrible filmmaker, that would be just kind of excruciating.
Magnolia.
But he there you go. But he often is quite gifted, I mean, he's Robert Altman. And so like his, you could even get glib and say like his mistakes are better than a lot of people's successes, that kind of thing,
Yeah, for sure. So let's, so we have this movie. Here it is. And let's start sort of talking about the different, I think the only way to tackle this maybe is to talk about just sort of the sets of characters, as these different stories are spread out through the whole film.
Do we want to do like what's your favorite, what's your least favorite, and do a round robin?
Your favorite and least.
I don't know. It's just a thought, or just to stay positive. Like, what's your favorite? What did you respond to?
Sure. Well, can I kick one off, because I think it's a really this is maybe one of my favorite through lines in the entire film. Of course, I mentioned the Lyle Lovett one earlier, but this is a different one. Is the Chris Penn and Robert Downey Jr. Sort of pairing, I think is very effective in this movie. I mean, Chris Penn plays a pool cleaner. Again, seeing a movie about a pool cleaner is always very refreshing. You know, these are the types of people we're seeing this movie about. And you see he's a guy who's absolutely got this brooding, dark anger underneath the surface, having to where he, you know, is he's observing his wife who is talking, you know, very salaciously on the, you know, in these phone sex
while feeding her child applesauce.
Yeah, and changing diapers.
He's talking about like big fat loads. It was that's darkly funny.
It is,
and that became a trope too. I would say that everywhere people like, you know, the phone sex worker, and then she's like frying bacon. That became kind of like a trope.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, just the idea of doing the mundane, you know, of taking care of children, but then just you know, totally engaged in this like very.
But you're saying no. But your point was with Chris Penn is like there's this other dimension to it because, in a way, it's not really even about that character, her.
Right. No.
In the moment, but it's him just sort of like mouth open, just sort of like in a way, it's encapsulating like his failure, as a man, as a father, as a husband,
emasculating,
and as a breadwinner.
Yep,
right. It's emasculating, and so, and he's just like staring in horror at a circumstance that like he let happen. Like he's not bringing home the bacon, so this is the consequence, and it's a grotesque consequence, you know, and it's almost funny, you know, it's black comedy.
Totally.
And I thought that was done very well. And you know, kudos to the late great Chris Penn. He reminds me of the guy in Dark Horse. Speaking of Todd Solondz, he has the look kind of, you know.
Sure, totally. Yeah, it's
I
great.
love him.
It's great to see.
I've seen him in that
he's great.
Bad.
It's great to see him. He does a great job. And
Jennifer,
you know, he's
there's a just about Jennifer Jason Leigh's like and how you would get someone to do those lines. You know, there was a great bit of Altman talking about it, like that. You know, he's like, I could write this for you, but it would just embarrass you to have to deliver those lines on set because you'd be thinking about me and my fixations and why I wrote them or whatever. So you come up with them, you write them or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's I love that approach. You know?
Totally, she's great. She's amazing in the movie as well, too. And so Chris Penn is also paired with his buddy, Robert Downey Jr., who kind of plays, you know, this kind of dirtbag Hollywood makeup artist, you know, in going to Hollywood makeup artist school, which I love.
Yeah. That's a great touch.
Place to play in. And
totally.
Just when you're seeing, like, the Hollywood makeup artist class the first time, it's like, ooh, this is just a great, you know, it's just, it's like inspiring because movies just don't set, you know, there's no settings like that in movies anymore, you know? And so seeing that, and of course playing with the tension of, you know, when you see him with his girlfriend, is that Lily Taylor is his girlfriend?
Yes.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And she, and at first you're like, oh my God, is she beaten up? Did Robert Downey Jr. beat her up? I was like, no, she's posing for makeup, you know, photos for his class. And so there's a lot of fun there. But of course he kind of becomes a shitty, dark character as the movie, gets into its final act, of course. But the tension with Chris Penn as he descends into this very dark place, and you know,
it gets almost Full Metal Jacket-y there.
It does, it does. Where you know, she's like Jennifer Jason Leigh is just focused on the money aspect of her job and supporting the family. And, you know, there's a really awkward exchange at a jazz club, you know, when they're all there. And there's a guy that's hitting on her. And, you know, he's going to offer her $200 for a blowjob in the back alley. And things get pretty dark there. And you just see Chris Penn.
She's going to go for it probably, right?
Yeah. It sounds like she was close to considering it. And
I think so.
Like her current job might put her one step closer to that lifestyle, right? I mean,
that might be the difference. Might be.
But she's curious about it at least.
Yeah. And Chris Penn can't handle this at all, but he's still emasculated because he doesn't do anything about it in the moment. And then obviously there's that really heartbreaking moment, I shouldn't say heartbreaking, I should say really terrifying moment when they're about to have sex, the two of them in bed, and she gets up and he confronts her about like, how come you don't talk to me the way you talk to your phone sex people, and it's just like, whew.
Great stuff. It feels very lived in, like it feels like a very real kind of bad, you know, bonding and like this emasculated guy.
Yeah.
And and they both play it very well. I wasn't sure where she was coming from because when you first experience her, you only see her through the phone sex context, and then she comes in and it's more like the nightclub scene, and she's like real trashy, and like I think Jennifer Jason Leigh does a nice job as like a lowbrow chick,
Totally.
And, and he's great, and it's a good pairing. So that's your favorite.
I love all their wardrobes too. They like the tie-dyed Led Zeppelin T-shirt that she's rocking, and then Robert Downey's got the he's got like a T-shirt. It's like a white T-shirt with a big E on it that's tucked in.
Yeah, isn't it like Internet Explorer?
That's what I thought it was.
I hope it's Internet Explorer. Me too. That might be a little too early for that.
But
so that's your favorite?
Well, no, I mean, it's
or
weird
whatever. Like
it's weird to say it's my favorite, but it's one of the
or you love that chunk.
It's just one of the most effective pieces because obviously it leads to the big payoff. At the end, which of course all these interweaving stories sort of meet, of course, when there's a earthquake that goes off. But what sets off that earthquake is this insanely dark moment where Chris Penn takes a fucking rock and kills this woman in sort of a serial killer, psychopathic sort of way,
yet very realistic, very realistic, like an eruption of like grotesque, idiotic violence. Can I just say one thing? I forgot to mention this earlier.
Yeah.
So I'd never seen Shortcuts, and I knew 0.1% about it.
I love
and
this.
at the end, I went, dude, there's a lot of death and side, or what is it, shortcuts? I was like, I didn't know there'd be one death, and there's like, I don't even think I've lost track. Like, there's a ton of death, direct and indirect.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow, this movie's like corpse riddled, you know. And I just wasn't expecting. I thought it would be like a lighter, kind of like. Like a piece of arguments in living rooms and stuff like that. But it's like there's some seriously grim stuff. And you want to? Can I move to a chunk? Maybe.
Go ahead. I'll tag you in.
It kind of changes the so. There's that chunk that includes a death, but the one that caught me by surprise kind of was the kid's injured. They're in the hospital, and then out of nowhere, the newscaster, played by Bruce Davidson, I think he's very good.
He's very good.
So out of nowhere, the dad comes and visits 15 years later, or 15 years since they've had any kind of exchange. I thought that stuff was great. And, I realized, like, boy, do I like Jack Nicholson. I mean, sorry, Jack Lemmon. And I was thinking, it's right around the time of Glengarry. And he's like, and he's doing jive. Like, no one does, like, old man jive bullshit. And, he's doing that all in Glengarry. And he's, like, kind of jive bullshitting at the table when they're having that sad breakfast, at the hospital restaurant. And so, anyway, I loved that. Was a really nice surprise because he's a different kind of actor. Then he's literally older, and it's like an old Hollywood guy, but he fits right in, and he kind of gooses the film for me because, I know this seems like a weird statement, but like, well, he's not a new Hollywood 70s guy or later even, into the 90s, like Downey Jr. He's like old school, and so he fits, but he also brings something else to the film, and it's when the film kind of calms down, and there are some more, not quite close-ups, but like essentially close-ups, like there's some real nice tight shots of the father and son having that long talk at the breakfast.
Well, yeah,
and,
he gives him.
Sorry,
I was just gonna say, like, Altman gives him like the monologue of the movie. There's not many monologue in the film. It's not really a monologue film, but he, sits there in that scene you're describing and tells this painfully dark story about like how he's like you were saying, he's jive talking his way into explaining to his son how he had sex with his his son's aunt, basically, his wife's sister.
His wife's sister, It's like, and then she shows up. Who would have fucking expected that? It's like horrible. Like, he's also just like representing like the rancid old days, But just to put his character is the button put on that character is really got me. This was like when I thought, like, this is one of the great moments in this film. The kid dies in the hospital.
I know.
And that's big stuff. That's like put on your, big boy pants and deal, like the death of your child, a child in the family, a death in general. And this fucking guy walks down the hallway and splits.
I know. I mean,
and that was, and I was going, Robert Altman, let that shot just sit there. Cause Jack Lemmon's going to do a nice job. Like worming away the way he has before with everything in his life. He's like, this got a little heavy. Yeah. See ya. I'm going to go to the bar. And it's just like, that's a type of guy. They suck. And they're often dads. And I thought that was a beautiful rendering of the actor, but the representation visually.
Yes.
It was such a great. See, he can be such a great filmmaker. Like he just set him up to be in the foreground of the hallway and just let him. And you're hearing the results of the kid dying, I think, in the distance, and you also know that off screen.
Yeah, you're seeing it. You're seeing the
they're trying to revive it.
No,
what I'm saying is, then you're not seeing, and you're just watching Lemon, and then you watch him in real time, just slowly recede into the distance. Great stuff. Yeah. So that's a moment that stuck out for me.
Totally.
It's a great character when they introduce a character like that. Like, he's more than a third of the way through the movie that character is introduced to and helps use the story. I always think about that, like, when they add like Lando Calrissian comes in the second Star Wars, like you've got a new character to help get you into the end of the movie,
Right.
I always think about, I don't know what to call that, but I like when they bring in a character.
Third act Charlies?
Yeah,
they're called third act Charlies.
Perfect.
Just real quick before we before we move on from that chunk, just real quick. Is just that whole, because a big part of this movie has a lot to do with the fact that in the very beginning, you see the newscaster and Andy McDowell. You see their kid get hit by a car, of course, and it's, Lily Tomlin is the person that hits the kid, and it's about basically, is this kid going to survive throughout this whole film? And it's just like, oh my god, it is like a very Todd Solondz, like the big Todd Solondz aspect, the shot that evokes a Todd Solondz film the most to me is, okay, so the kid's been hit by the car. Andy McDowell's character, mistakenly lets him go to sleep. He's probably suffered a concussion. And Altman does this amazing thing where it's a super wide shot, long shot, and the camera zooms in just as Andy McDowell is figuring out that her son is unresponsive. But it just zooms and pushes directly into a glass of milk. You know what I'm talking about? And it kind of cuts to a TV commercial of spilled milk, and like this being a spilled milk situation.
Yeah. Right. I didn't make the connection then, but I know what you're saying.
There is some humor involved in that feels so dark and poetic that it does feel like something out of a Solondz movie. It's just a weird thing.
The kid, you feel his like shame walking home, and he's like holding his head down, and he looks so disappointed in himself that he let himself get hit. He's going to be in trouble, and just also the irony that with Lily Tomlin, when she's telling her daughter Lily Taylor, she's like saying, I hit a kid today, but he's okay. I walked him home, and Lily Taylor's
no, she didn't.
Well, she walked with him
whatever.
A little bit.
Okay, so she said he's okay. I talked to him, and so but when he gets home, she's like, Lily Taylor's like, you're so lucky. That this could have changed everything. The irony is being that the kid did die, but Lily Tomlin's going on with life thinking that she almost killed a kid.
Can I interject something here? I totally hear what you're saying. And that's interesting, like back to Class, kind of, because Tom Waits, her partner in the film, his only reaction is just like, oh shit, man, I don't want to get fucking sued. And what I'm saying is that like when you are broke, like all those people in that family, in that strata, Tomlin and her daughter and Tom Waits, it's like, it maybe the first thing isn't like, oh, the soul of this angel child. It's like, oh shit, man, I'm on parole still. Like it's like more nitty gritty than just like the abstraction of like some strangers, physical harm. It's like because they're on the bleeding edge of like being fucked up and homeless or something like that. So like like one bad thing, some bad luck could get them like
totally,
like screwed for life. So again, back to the Class thing. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Marcus,
you mentioned Lyle Lovett too, right?
Oh,
in this
yeah, we should.
But
I'm loving it.
Yeah, I mean,
he's so memorable. He doesn't get a lot of lines, but just the way he looks, And I knew he was at the time because I was like, that guy is married to Julia Roberts.
Yeah,
I'm still
that's a
kind
very
of amazed
90s
by that.
like WTF. Really,
he's. I think he got a lot of dialogue. He was in The Player too, and weirdly, I think that Altman said that he cast him in Shortcuts before they shot The Player. So weirdly, this was already kind of in motion, I guess, before. Strangely, but I feel like he does a really good job. But there are these like extra scenes of him on the DVD where he's like speaking more dialogue. I'm not saying it's bad, but it is interesting that he had a lot of dialogue cut. It looks like
he's.
I mean,
he's not an actor,
I think the longest run of dialogue he had that's in the final cut of the film. It's like oh, you're barely crossing the finish line.
Yeah.
Like it's like it gets like he's trailing off and it's getting wooden and like stilted.
He's a little wooden.
He's not an actor.
There's a lot of, we were just talking about movies that have a lot of musicians in it. What were we talking about? Movies where they cast a musician in it?
I don't remember.
There's so many in this. They got Tom Waits, Lyle Lovett,
Huey Lewis. Yeah.
Huey Lewis.
Huey
And
Lewis.
then Annie Ross is the jazz singer, whatever,
Yeah,
Tom
yeah,
Stewart
yeah.
character.
All
And,
right.
the cellist too is like a real cellist,
Yeah, yeah,
so he's got a
she's
lot
great.
of.
Yeah,
like,
I was like, Homegirl can actually fucking
yeah,
play
she's-
the cello. Like they're
she's
not
shredding.
overdubbing.
She's
Yeah.
totally
You know?
shredding. One thing about Lyle Lovett's character is it's an amazing idea for a character in a movie. Obviously, it
love
originates
it.
from a story, but this disgruntled drunk birthday cake
Oh,
baker,
it's so good.
phone harasser is an incredible concept for a character. And when he does get into that side, and it cuts to him, and you can see he's drinking too, like you see a bottle of booze there as he's you know, repeatedly calling the house. And it's just another sick, almost Todd Solondz touch as well too. Is that every time he calls the house, and Andy McDowell doesn't answer, you hear the answering machine, which is so sick that they made it the kid's voice.
Yes, exactly.
You know, like,
Hi, this is the Fidigino. We can't get to the phone right now.
I
You've
know,
reached the house
the
of-
disembodied voice of the late
Oh,
child, like
crazy.
filling the house.
Right.
yeah, love it. So
Can
anyway,
I defend him
yeah.
for a second? Like,
Yeah.
he's definitely weird, like the baker, but
Yeah.
the thing is, the film at least is
Yep.
is exhibiting that when he first is calling and just trying to sort this out, the newscaster Bruce Davidson is a total doucher to him. Now he's obviously got an issue. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he's screaming obscenities at the baker, which
Yeah.
is kind of like out to lunch. Like he didn't do the situation any favors by being
No.
so abusive on the phone.
Yeah,
So he's
yeah.
Right.
It's a little even there.
And
the,
he
you know,
gets
the abuse.
redeemed at the end too, because he does kind of embrace the family and
Yeah.
sort of try to help
Oh,
the
yeah.
family in the end. So
Give him some muffins and
it
stuff.
gives us yeah.
I threw out the cake.
Yeah.
I
threw it away.
I usually I also got to shout out Andy McDowell. I usually hate her in movies for some reason. I think
Dude,
it might
Michael-
be Groundhog Day or something.
Dude, cosign.
Dude, Michael
her
Michael
accent,
Angelo.
she's just flat, but
I
she's pretty
can't.
good in this, I'd say.
She
But,
is. I agree.
yeah.
And she had some heavy lifting, and she did a good job.
Yeah,
I agree with
yeah,
you.
Yeah, I mean, shout out
Wow,
to
we're
our,
running out of time. This is
shout out to our
bad.
Michael episode. Yeah, we are bleeding time.
The clock
really
is a
fast.
nightmare.
Michael, right.
So okay, so
bullet- yes, that's right.
yeah,
Oh, God.
so
bullet points.
So Marcus, you got one scene you want to get bring up real quick? Before we
I
can
don't know if
get
this is
into
my
more?
favorite, but I liked Frances McDormand's character, and I thought
Sure.
you don't usually see her as like kind of a sexy kind of like
True.
character, and she's walking around naked in the scene, and she's I thought she was a good I liked her story with Peter Gallagher coming in and chainsawing
Yeah.
up all the furniture. I think that's a nice
Well,
visual.
that's great. Yeah.
That's
motif
amazing.
and
Yeah,
and
like he's doing it all day. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's committing. It's
love
like 5 hours later,
Yeah.
chair, and he's just like, and then silently cutting clothing. I've heard in the reality people like dudes doing that kind of thing,
it's
like revenge trashing. I've heard of this.
It's so weird, and the fact that he invites the carpet shampooer guy in just to shampoo just that one
It's
little.
getting pretty surreal. That almost feels like a mid-century short
It
story
does.
thing. That might be.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
might be in there.
He's got the
But-
the home shopping network on the TV when he's chopping
very
things
weird.
up.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Can
so-
I mean, I guess we got 20 minutes. We're doing chunks. Can I address a chunk? I want to hear what you guys have to say. I just want to give my opening thing on this. I thought there was a big miscasting in the film, and it took me out of the film, and it dinged the film for me.
You
because it's a
heard
pretty
there was
important
one.
character.
This is a known thing, or this is your own?
No, I'm
thing?
saying that in my opinion,
Okay.
and I just want to hear what you guys
Okay.
think. So very simply, Tim Robbins, I think, is miscast because I'm coming into the film, and there isn't a lot of exposition and character development. These
Yeah.
you are just dropped into the lives of these people, which is cool, and I like it, and it works. But so him, I was like, I don't know what to make. I didn't know he was a cop for a long time, for instance, which is okay. That it was a reveal that he's a cop, but Tim Robbins, his physicality, his face, his voice, his demeanor, it's so unconvincing and so at odds with the kind of character that I think they're trying to muster.
Yeah.
And then for some reason I thought, wow, what if James Woods was doing this? Now I know that's almost too far.
Too good. Yeah.
Well, I mean, too dark,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, sure.
But when I thought of that, like, what if James Woods was was instead cast. And
Yeah.
really took me out of his characterization, because it's like he's supposed to be like, I'm dropping dogs off, I'm fucking this bitch, and like I'm juggling hoes, and it's
Right.
like I'm a bad man, you know, and it's like
Right. We're
I'm
used to
not
seeing him in a
getting
more
that.
heroic kind of, like he's got a hero, or like he's the like I think of him as like
Goofy.
Shawshank Redemption, or like
The Player, I mean,
the
he's kind
Hudsucker
of
Proxy. He was in so many
sleazy.
'90s movies, but I always think of him as sort of a good guy, not someone with a bad core.
Well, he's kinda
He's not like like the bad guy, you're
Well,
he's not an anti-hero at all. So it's like,
Yeah.
in my opinion, so it
Yeah.
takes so much away from that character. It just, first of all, it was confusing, and then I was just like not buying it. And I don't think he does a very good job at that kind of character, who
Yeah.
even maybe isn't like 100% evil, like, like, I'll kill children, but he's more just like, he's just generally on the wrong side of things. He's just generally a bad guy who does bad things, especially to women. And I just didn't convince it for him. What do you guys think?
Well, he just touch on that. I mean, he is kind of a sleazy guy in The Player. I mean, that's kind of, one of the, I'm sure that's where Altman thought he could play this character. Unless I really thought about it, now that you say it, I kind of go back and see how I could see maybe there could be someone better for that role. But I do, in the back of my mind, sort of could tell, like, when he's acting in these performances, it is kind of just like, there's not a lot of grace. There's not a lot of dynamic range to what he's doing. He's kind of just yelling a lot, and he seems like it's just over the top. It's like an over the top performance that maybe he himself isn't quite suited for. I can see that. I think
well said. I think when he doesn't have a direction, he might be one of those kind of actors.
Yeah.
I don't know if he had, in general, with this film, like enough direction to understand what he's doing. So he's kind of flailing. And I think, it's like maybe he didn't have enough, I don't know, enough prep time, and he's just like thrown into this film, and it's like, I don't know, I guess I'll just yell my way through this character. And
Yeah, I think
cross
that's
my
probably
fingers.
what it is.
Like you said, Altman takes a lot of risks, and I think improvises a lot of the dialogue and stuff.
Right.
So there's that aspect of it, and then also they were probably riding high off of The Player, and
That's the
thinking
thing,
like,
yeah.
we're gonna team up and we can just do
Sure.
this together, kind
Totally.
of thing. And there's even stories of like Tim Robbins like calling Altman and being like, "What do you think about putting a clown in the movie? Like at the very end, a clown shows up to the parents' house with some balloons.
Oh, wow.
And you see them float away. We're all
there you go.
And Altman's like, I don't know about a clown in that part, but maybe until he uses his idea for the other character,
okay.
for the woman
yeah.
being the clown. But
Yeah.
there was some collaboration going on in terms of
Interesting.
ideas. But I could
No,
see him
it's
trying
cool.
some things and not working out, but not
I'll just. I don't think that casting worked out.
Yeah,
in
so
my
we can
opinion.
move on. I can see that, but I think it is balanced out by Madeline Stowe, who I think is very good in this movie.
Yeah,
and
agree.
I think she does a great job. She's a very interesting character too, and how she's portrayed and how she
I
deals
agree.
with all of his bullshit is very unique.
Yeah.
For sure. Let's just move into another little set piece. It's another big one. We mentioned it earlier, which is the sort of fisherman story.
Dude.
Which is great. The idea that, again, it's just such a, maybe not what you thought going into this movie, Tom, but there'd be a scene where there's a fisherman who whips out his wang. A lot of full frontal in this movie as well, too.
There
Probably
is.
as much-
I didn't think I'd see Huey Lewis's dick. Is that what you're about to say?
No.
I didn't have that on my bingo
card. No, but
Yeah,
so
all right.
basically,
But no, yeah, death. Like there's just like so much death, and one of the most arresting movie images of death, the rendering of
the woman,
the poor naked gal under the water. It's horrifying.
Yeah, it is totally. And then just this,
in the context.
and then just like this sort of like, oh my God, this kind of inhuman, banal sort of portrait of inhumanity. This idea of like, all right, let's take a vote.
Fish now, or deal with the body.
I say fish now.
Suppose the current takes it away.
Fish now or deal with the body,
Or just like, but we just got here.
I know.
I just unloaded all my stuff. It's
amazing.
like
they're
that's
also
that's
good.
Yeah.
To all three of them, I think.
Dude, Buck
Huey
Henry,
Lewis,
dude.
Buck
Yeah.
Henry is killing it. Fred Ward, which I love him in so many
Yeah,
things.
he's great. He's
Yeah.
great in general in this film.
It's-
No, so that was
And Huey too
very-
is doing a great. Is really
Huey was
great
good.
at being
He's
a middle
great.
class guy.
it's a great trio of shitheads.
Yeah.
But
Oh my God.
go
But
ahead,
wait.
please.
The finish of that whole storyline and how it intersects, of course, with the Lily Taylor story is amazing at the end when everyone's getting their photos developed. I mean, that's such a brilliant touch.
No, I love that. And that's something that wouldn't happen anymore, too. I love that. Like,
of course.
It's that kind of thing where, like, half the horror movies in the era of cell phones wouldn't happen. You know?
Right.
It's that kind of thing. Like that would only have happened within another 5 years. And
they reference this in that movie too, and they're like, "What are you gonna do? Call on your mobile phone to like your car phone?"
No, but to see like Polaroid plot lines, like that was cool, and that's done really well, and it's fun. It's humorous.
I just want to explain what it is, just so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
So there's a set piece, of course, where the two characters are getting their photos developed. You know, the fishermen are getting their photos, and of course, then Lily Taylor's getting her makeup shots that Robert Downey Jr. shot of her, which as she looks dead, there's making her up to look dead, and the photos are swapped, and of course they literally see the real dead woman from the fishing trip because they got the photo swapped, and that's just fucking amazing. Like thinking this guy's some fucking serial killer or something. Yeah, amazing.
It's
touch.
Like no, and they're both independently like going 5, 7, 6, 2, 8.
788-699-604-8364.
Like rattling off
their license plates.
Their license plate numbers. Yeah. No, and again, that's humor. It's grimly funny. Great set
time
piece,
capsule too.
Handled perfectly.
Yeah,
it's darkly funny.
Yeah.
So that whole chunk of the film is very rewarding. And can I bring up maybe another chunk that you guys are thinking is one thing about Altman, just thinking of him in general, is I love sort of like deflated 6 a.m. all night partying.
Yeah.
Like wearing like a wig, a skew.
That felt very LA.
Yeah. Well, no, but what I'm saying is it reminds me of the great all-nighter having breakfast in California Split.
Sure.
Which is one of my favorite scenes of Altman. So I was really happy to see that the sun is rising and they're all wearing fucked up wigs and makeup. And it looked a little like Death Game, The Seducers. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, 1977.
Yep, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Anyway. But no, I thought that was very fun. And actually it was kind of, I like that the note that whole set piece ended on, because there's a lot of domestic tension when that dinner party starts with both parties, like the two separate
because of the dead
couples.
body and the infidelity. Yep.
Right, and then just the infidelity and how like real gross tension, and there's like a debatably strong performance of yelling from what's her name?
Julianne Moore,
Magnolia lady. Yeah, Julia Moore.
Another yelling monologue about her
that was not my favorite.
Infidelity.
I was like, oh my god, girl, like change it up. No, but what I'm saying is what I liked in the resolution of things with Altman was that they all got loose and funky at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Booze. They loosened up, and it kind of was a rewarding time for them. Actually, it was when they started wearing the clown outfits.
Yeah.
And they all kind of got crazy and loosened up, and there's this sort of abstract, almost like off-Broadway thing of like they're wearing clown masks and taking on personas and female male roles, and like it was just sort of like this strange sort of cabaret 5 a.m. drunkenness that made them all kind of loosen up. And by dawn, I think those guys all felt better with themselves and with each other. The couples did, and I don't know, didn't it feel kind of cool?
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
There's a lot of resolution that's happening at the end of the film. Like a lot of the characters are coming together, which is weird. It's like you have the Lyle Lovett character and the families embracing. You have Tom Waits and Lily Tomlin are coming back together.
Sure,
and then these characters are coming back together, but then it all gets disrupted by this fucking earthquake. But it does get like kind of zany in a good way, which I rarely say, but it kind of goes off the rails like during that part when like the earthquake's happening and we're seeing like them, that picture of the 5 a.m. party, everybody's in the hot tub, and the water in the hot, it's just getting crazy. And then even Frances McDormand's character comes home to see her house that's been torn apart. And what's her reaction is to laugh, which I think is also kind of a weird resolution too. It's not I agree. It's not what you'd think. It's not like, oh, that son of a bitch. It's like, this guy's funny almost.
Maybe it's just like, I'm just so over this. Like,
it's like, oh, of course.
Like I'm gonna take the kid to mom's and we're out of here.
Yeah.
No, it's because it's like he made it. What he did was so absurd that he just made their circumstance ridiculous and absurd. Like,
there you go. It's
absurd.
And
it's like the final resolution of this is just like this infantile, like acting out session by this guy, and it's like, all right, let's get out of here.
Yeah,
maybe she's saying that.
Yeah, so I mean, it does get I think the film itself becomes absurdist there at that point, and then, but of course the Chris Penn thing is the one thing that's kind of the dark underbelly of all of this. That's the one piece that's
didn't see it coming.
Yeah,
and it happens like so many great films. There's a scene of violence that is out of nowhere. You don't expect it. And it's so brutal.
Yeah.
Like incomparable to like a horror movie because
yep.
I that's the great thing. I knew nothing about this film. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just like, oh, he's going to make out with her and stuff like that. And it's like, no, it's like in like maybe 4 seconds.
Wide
screaming,
shot too. Wide shot.
Yeah. Screaming, wide shot, blood red, and then the earthquake. And, it's done. It's handled so well, and then it just the resolution of that circumstance is Chris Penn's lost face. He's just like it's kind of Full Metal Jacket, like I said. It's like there's just nothing there. He's just wiped out, you know, and he's like looking like comatose basically, and it's very dark.
It would be very creepy if that just happened and you never saw like what happened afterwards too, you know, in a film. But they also give a little hint of like that he got away with it.
Yeah,
you know,
can I just say it didn't work for me? There's like a loophole.
There is a loophole.
Can we spend like yes, exactly. Can we spend like 30 seconds because it's like the friend lived. She's the witness.
I know, and Downey.
So it doesn't matter if an earthquake happened 5 seconds after he bludgeoned her. So it's like there is a witness who's not douchebag Downey Jr. Like Downey, if the other gal wasn't there, Downey Jr. Yes, he would have gone like, oh, the rocks fell on us and it hit her.
Could be a different girl. Could be a different girl. That's all I'm saying.
Different girl.
True. I was thinking about that. I was wondering about that.
Whoa! What are you saying?
It doesn't specifically identify that. It doesn't specifically identify that it's that woman that died, right, in the film.
What?
In the
girl who
newscast?
takes her shirt off because it got beer on it?
Well, he's just saying the news report says
doesn't
say
yes, I thought of that too.
Hiking from
Yeah,
rocks.
it just says a girl.
But the film's reality focuses on that. I'm sure
I was thinking about that, you know, and I was wondering like, what about the friend? I did kind of
that took me out of it. I was like y'all are trying to be maybe too clever by half, and it's like, did you sew that up though?
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary.
I could live without it.
Yeah. So
and then get away with it.
There's one quick thing too that I just wanted to touch on before we also talk about that other movie. But one thing just with the Andie MacDowell stuff, again, there's so much rich in that storyline, with the kid, and it's painful to watch her character continually take these actions that are so either misguided or wind up resulting in the wrong thing. The idea that she lets the kid sleep, after he's been hit by a fucking car, is by her own doing. And that's painful to watch. And then, of course, it's extremely painful to watch where she tries to talk to the kid and to get him to be resuscitated and to wake up from his state. And then, of course, that's what triggers his death. And so just brutal, to watch, her being kind of not, sort of responsible for those actions, but it's just dramatically also very... it's very heavy. That gives everything a lot of weight, and the fact
what can just to maybe have empathy for her in a second. It's like the kid doesn't feel very communicative, maybe in general before even the accident, like he's a little withdrawn. So if someone is not being communicative enough and saying it hurts here this way, and like, it's just, he's kind of like, I'm cool. Like I'm going to curl up into a ball. I don't know. It's just like, she didn't have a lot to work with, like, cause she's guessing about how injured he is.
That's what being a parent is, kind of like, like they don't know how to react to things. They have to learn, that you tell someone that this,
like
that,
concussions,
like everything.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So just very sad.
I'll go ahead. Well, I had just one quick factoid before we talk about the other movie. Because the Julianne Moore character is that painter, and there's you see so many shots of that. It just makes you know that some artist did it. And it's so I looked at it. It's Don Bacardi, who was the lifelong partner of Christopher Isherwood, who was the guy that wrote Cabaret. You mentioned Cabaret a few minutes ago. But anyway, just a weird factoid. That's who that is. It's like it is a guy.
Wow,
I love it. Well, shades of Three Women, by the way, of like weird, unnerving art. Like hanging in the walls.
Totally,
I like that.
There's a few characters we didn't hit, of course, in this,
Let's do it.
like, the clown too, just the idea of the birthday clown.
Ann Archer.
Yeah, Ann Archer is just such a weird touch to the movie. I love that little scene where she as the clown runs into Matthew Modine in the hospital, but he has no idea what the fuck's going on.
I'm really looking forward to dinner. Stuart's bringing the fish, remember?
Right. Who's that? I have no idea.
Right.
And she's like, yeah, I'm coming over to your house later for dinner.
Right,
He's like,
right.
I don't know what this is, what you're about, or whatever.
I don't know who that fucking clown is. But I guess we're having dinner. No, because he doesn't recognize it. Well, they didn't know each other that well in the first place.
I know,
that was a
but
very nice touch.
Just a little funny little moment there. But there's so much to talk about. But just to transition to this final 5 minutes here, even if we're going to spend that long talking about this, but it's you can't ignore it. And it's been about 10 years since I'd seen this movie last. I had a ball rewatching it for this, and it actually just really made me dislike both Magnolia and Paul Thomas Anderson even more than I already do after watching it again, because it's so brazen, the idea to completely just, I'm going to make my own shortcuts.
I know.
Right down to the setting, right down to the idea of some sort of like cosmic thing, like an earthquake or the frogs that rain down that's going to unite everybody at the end. You know what it also made me think?
The actor.
It also explains the Amy Mann terrible jazz music.
Yes.
A little
I
bit
was
more.
thinking that too.
The threading, like the Greek chorus threading of music that runs through everyone's lives. No, I mean there's more. I mean there's a cop.
I've got to have some horrible jazz music for this film.
Well, I mean, even outside of like good or bad music, it's just like that's another cheap thing to do. Because the thing is, everything. Yeah. If you were him, can you imagine like thinking about it like Magnolia and going like, well, that would be fun if I like had my own version of like some huge earthquake that affected everybody who was otherwise a disparate character for the first 3 hours. I can't do that. Like that. There's a moment when everyone in their right mind would just go, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? But then he did do that. But then also there's another little touch. There's a television personality.
Yeah.
They both have that. A newscaster and the quiz show host. It's like, come on.
The like brazen,
and there's an old bad father.
Old bad father from
Jack Lemmon and Jason Robards, and they're also old school
third generation actors.
Right.
Yeah. It's got a lot of just like, the same
less
feeling.
death in Magnolia.
That's true. I guess. But yeah. And suicide, and things like that. It's just it's such a shallow it's really one of those things where I think you should be in movie jail, like for real. Like the idea of
one
like
of the problems that he got away with it, and that Magnolia is this like lauded, like
Well, people didn't see Shortcuts as much as they saw.
No,
right. Yeah.
But it's
no,
the same
I know
thing.
that's the big travesty is that Shortcuts is like kind of forgotten in a lot of ways.
It
I
is.
guess it's on Criterion now, but like
you can't even watch it.
Magnolia is one that people would rattle off as like one of the best movies of all time.
Shortcuts is not even available to stream anywhere, and I just want to make the comparison too that it's also like you belong in movie jail when you cross that line. I think when you're sort of stealing somebody else's like thing for yourself. And it's the same thing, especially a movie that's a gem that not many people know. When you do it in that way, where it crosses the line of homage and it becomes theft, which is what we talked about on the Movies We Hate episode. We talked about Joker and how that steals King of Comedy, a lesser known film.
Awful.
And then people then now assume
so I could just do it with impunity because they won't face con. Can I just say, I mean, I'm not even so much into like having a problem with it as far as thievery, but it's just like where is your head at? Like back to that, like why would you do that? Like it's a thought experiment, but why would you commit to actually doing that? Like you could say he's honoring his idol Altman, but it's like it's a weird way to do it. But then what really got me was great. Okay, Paul Thomas Anderson, you're forcing me to compare the films, and the tone of the Altman film is so, like we were saying, like you're kind of watching most things from like across the street. It's more observational, and it has more. If it has music, it's diegetic music. It's not like obnoxious, overbearing, loud, stereo pumping like pop music to pull the heartstrings. And also, it doesn't have like huge close-ups and like it's a much more mature film, and it's a drier film, and it actually has something that Magnolia has none of, which is like dark humor, and playfulness, and like it's such a Magnolia's so uptight, and it's really just a 3-hour music video,
and also no, it's what we said in the episode. Shout out to our Magnolia episode. It's 3 hours of deleted scenes from another movie, but it's also and also intriguing things happen in shortcuts. Like, I'm not saying plot elements, but there's very compelling story elements and compelling characters. And Magnolia, that's the one to two things there you forgot to take from shortcuts.
I know, right?
Is those things, and you just kind of took the aesthetic and the philosophy, I guess, of some.
Well, and the basic structure, which is weird because it's like, of all the things to take from Altman and this film's side shortcuts, is like the structure. But then you're right, leave behind the tone of it.
Yeah,
and the like the care of the characters. It's really just a show off piece. It's about the star of the movie is the director and not any of the characters.
And the movie Shortcuts was only like 5 years old or something by the time.
Yeah, I know. It's not like a classic like from decades before.
All right,
can I just throw out there, guys? Before we went to the 5 minutes on the Magnolia comparison, I was gonna say, okay, I've got our next bonus episode for an hour. We do like a hard comparison of shortcuts and we just go for it leisurely, like just like, how about this? Maybe maybe or maybe not,
sure. I mean,
maybe it doesn't deserve an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it would be something we could do. It's like overtime.
Just a thought.
We could do some overtime.
Yeah. It'd be fun.
It was a hard hour. It's a hard hour to talk about a 3 hour plus movie in an hour time frame is very difficult.
Almost absurd.
The behind the scenes on this movie is an hour and a half long.
It is. It is. Yeah, you should check it out. It's very cool. But anyway, that was one fucking hour on shortcuts. Our best attempts. I'm getting over being sick, so I apologize if some of
you
my...
did a great job.
You did great.
I wouldn't have known that.
Really?
You didn't say that.
Really?
No, yeah.
Oh, because I
wouldn't have known.
Literally struggling through brain fog to try and put sentences together.
Well, I always feel like shit, so
my brain's always foggy. So
yeah, exactly. Like I'm like half asleep when I'm doing this show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so anyway, love
we
shortcuts.
did it.
I really there's some really great filmmaking in that movie.
It's special when it's good. It's about the best Altman gets, and it was a very nice surprise for just it was a new Altman for me.
Oh, and I do want to. Yeah, you also inspired something. Well, actually, Marcus inspired it originally, but you inspired me, Tom, to bring this up because I do want to do this perhaps for our next bonus episode because I think it would be really fun. Which is I'm going to say it here. Fuck it, I want to do this for our next bonus episode. I want to do, maybe we make it 90s movie themed because that could be fun, is let's do a bonus episode centered around all of the movies that we haven't seen of the 90s. Okay.
Yeah. Right. The 90s. Yeah.
But the key important factor of being, we have to describe to the others what we think the movie is. Because I mean, I famously, this may be the most inept example, I famously did not know what Sophie's Choice was about.
Well, that's the 80s, but
it is 80s, but I quipped to Raimi that that I thought it was a romantic comedy of some kind. So
I love that. or just, I mean, well, if we were to do this, it would be very fun. You would see me struggling through understanding the plot of Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything. I don't know what's going on. I've never seen 1 minute of it. I've never seen 1 minute of it.
Okay,
but I've watched Patch Adams like 10 times.
Yeah,
so. I'm fucking crazy. All
right, so let's do it. I'm calling it here. Our next bonus episode is going to be on the 90s films we haven't seen.
We just did 93. Hear ye.
Yes.
And we're barreling into the shank of the decade now, almost. And we are doing something that is not uncommon with the show. Once in a while, certain kind of episode rears its ugly head, and we actually indirectly, we by proxy referred to it for this episode. One of the greats, our first big one, which was Magnolia. We call them Dunkables. Because it's movies that we throw in the dunking booth. And we ruthlessly just pelt until it keeps dropping into the water, and then it gets up and we throw it back in the water, dunk it. Dunkables. So we've got a dunkable. We're going to do one dunkable for the decade is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And that's coming up next episode.
Yeah. So we're, of course, we never said these 90s films we're going to be covering are all 90s movies we like. We're going to throw a dunkable in there. So for next week, for 1994, we have referenced this movie previously on the show in short form, during one of our
worth
movies.
double dipping, though.
We've mentioned it a lot.
It's worth double dunking because we've mentioned it on our Movies We Hate live stream we did. Shout out. But we are going to be getting into one of our favorite directors to talk about on this channel as well, too. Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers is going to be next week.
Yeah, dude. The next episode, it's brutal. I mean, yes, we've talked about it a lot. And I was just thinking tonight, it has some people from this series, like Downey Jr.'s in it, and Juliette Lewis is in it, you know? And so, and you know, it's, you mentioned Oliver Stone. It's funny because some might think like, oh, like they're dunking on Oliver Stone again. They hate him. We hate him. We hate him. He sucks. But we did. We had a killer time with Talk Radio.
Love Talk Radio. Right. I love Talk Radio.
And I would do
Salvador.
I would do
love Salvador. Love Salvador.
Salvador's so good. We really should do it. And I like Platoon. I'm cool. And so it's not that simple. And I love The Doors. It like only a brilliant madman could make a movie that campy and bad. You know?
Yes.
So, but this is the one where it's like I really can barely deal with it.
It's rough.
Natural Born Killers. Natural Born Killers it's the worst of the '90s. It's the worst of the Gen X generation. I will say. So this should be. There's a lot to chew on here. It's brutal.
This is Boomer doing Gen X.
Yes, right? Boomer goes Gen X.
Right. Really, a witch's cauldron of hell.
That's the only redeeming thing is that there's some funny aspect to it. If it wasn't, I mean, if you watch, that is the only thing that makes it enjoyable to watch. I think is that aspect of it. I hate watching it, but I'm saying that's the only joy I get out of it. Is laughing at the Boomer interpreting
the abstract
Gen
knowledge
X.
of what it is.
We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it.
So excruciating. So it should be a fun hour. So we're gonna do a dunkable.
I have to fucking watch it again, which
that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah,
I had to watch it for that episode.
I watched it too. I watched it too. Yeah, but I'm gonna have to watch it again.
This will be one of the movies I've watched the most now. If I watch it again,
yes.
All right, so
but you know what? I have an assignment for all of you guys for this dunkable episode. Okay, we all have to think of one positive thing.
I already said mine.
Oh, you did
that
say
doesn't count because you were saying the abstract notion of generations working.
Impossible.
No, I mean,
well, that's quite a challenge.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We don't do it right now. It's not this episode, but it's a goof. But it's the challenge. Right. It's the Natural Born Killers challenge.
Okay.
One positive. I have one. I'm already done.
Okay, don't say it.
It's possible.
Jesus.
No, I'm not. It's not the episode, but I'm just saying like. It's the Natural Born Killers challenge.
Okay, Natural Born Killers challenge. Let's try and think of one good thing about it, right? And then let's also just for fun pick what is the cringiest moment to each of us? Like number one.
God.
Just what's our number one cringy? You have no.
I have some
No, one. Just you got to pick one moment.
No, totally. There's some moments.
Okay.
It's so rough.
I'm very excited.
But it's so fun. It's painful to watch, but it's fun to talk about it. I think so.
I'm so excited.
So join us next episode, guys.
All right, there we go. Natural Born
But then
Killers.
we're going back to movies that kick ass, you know. After that, 95.
Maybe. Yes, 95.
So this is the one dunkable of the series.
Yes, and just quick little bit of business. I'm leaving town probably as you're hearing this episode. I'll be out for like a week, so it might be a little delay on the release of the Natural Born Killers episode, but we'll get there.
It's summer.
What's summer, man? We're on summer mode. So, all right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Of course, for one fucking hour on Shortcuts. Shout out to the Patreon again. If you want to watch us play the fucking Blockbuster board game, or
and you do
because it was a blast. We should do it live next time. Next time we'll do it live.
For sure.
People can chime in and have fun with us. And then definitely for our next bonus episode, which I'm sure we'll record when we record the Natural Born Killers episode, which we're going to talk about the 90s movies we haven't seen, and more specifically what we think they're about. I think that'll be very fun. And but we can't leave you guys right now without your moment of Zen. All right, everybody. Have a good rest of your week, and we will see you again in 1994. All right, take care.
See you in 1994. Bye.
Don't put Susie outside the spring. They're gonna give her cancer.
I'm not gonna give her cancer. Don't you get environmental on me.
Picture this film as a canvas, with author Raymond Carver as the colors and director Robert Altman as the painter. Shortcuts is a collaboration of Carter's stories and Altman's directorial talent. It has multi-plots, 9 in all, and 22 characters who live their own lives in a suburban California town. They fight, they love, some paths will cross, others will not.
It's just life. It's just lifting the roof off of this house and looking in.
You mean like you were naked?
Mm-hmm. Knew they'd call it.
And then putting it back on and lifting this roof up and looking at that behavior.
So virtual reality is practically totally real, but not.
The list of stars reads like a who's who in Hollywood. Jack Lemmon, Andie MacDowell, Robert Downey Jr., Tim Robbins, Lily Tomlin, Lyle Lovett, Huey Lewis, and Annie Archer are just part of this cast. All of them took less money for the opportunity to work on this groundbreaking film.
I said, Ola, if I have one more beer, I'm going to have to take a nap. And she says, I wondered what it would.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
That was wicked, man.